أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. We finished off in our previous talk asking the question as to how we are able to compare between Imam Hussein and Yazid, and whether or not it is fair for us to say that we can put one on each side of a scale. And the initial response to this is clearly that there is a very big difference بين السماء والأرض between Imam Hussein and anyone similar to Imam Hussein and the likes of Yazid. And that's why it's incorrect, it's in no way acceptable for us to even try to make a comparison between Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Yazid. But if we wanted to, we would be able to say that on this side it was pure good, on that side it was pure evil. And why does it make it so important for us to discuss this and to clarify all of these different parts of the history of early Islam? Because I've mentioned this a few times, I'll mention it again. When it came to the Khalifa, and try to absorb that word, Khalifa basically means the successor of who? Of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. And that's why they used to call him Al-Khalifa Yazid ibn Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Who was he succeeding? Apparently succeeding Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But how can we accept, and this is the same case with any of the other Umayyad, Marwani and Abbasi Khulafa, that each and every one of them came with this title, presenting themselves as Khalifat Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And so majority of people did not even question this. Majority of people did not even object to this. Even when they were playing around with Baytul Mal as they wished, people said, well, this is their entitlement. They have the authority to do that. They can spend Baytul Mal as they wish. Compare that to how Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was dealing with the Baytul Mal, where he would, on Thursday nights, would sweep the floor of Baytul Mal, of the Muslim treasury, and he would see the empty floor, and he would put his cheek on that floor, on the floor, and he would say, on Judgment Day, you're going to testify that I made sure that each and every dinar and dirham went to the proper person, went to the proper place. And don't forget, Baytul Mal, it includes the tributes, it includes taxes, it includes zakat, it includes khums, it includes sadaqat. And so that never-ending supply of money, who had that? Bani Umayyah had that. Bani al-Abbas had that. And of course, the nufus of a lot of people at that time was very weak. So they were tempted and they were enticed with money or with status or with things like that. And they went ahead and they accepted it. And that's exactly with the case of Kufa. That's exactly during the time of Imam Hussein. That's exactly the case when it came to those who participated in the army of Yazid. They were all in it for something. They were mercenaries. They were mercenaries. They were in it for something. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the other side, we spoke about this as well last night with his companions. He kept on reminding them that, listen, look, my path now is shahada, is martyrdom. If you stay with me, you're going to be martyred. You're going to die. So use the darkness of the night to leave if you want to. And they didn't. They refused to do so. And so, even when it comes to, for example, I wanted to mention this later on in my talk tonight, but I'll mention it now with Umar ibn Sa'd. He was the active commander under Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, and Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad was the governor of Kufa under Yazid. Umar ibn Sa'd, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad ibn Abi, and Yazid ibn Muawiyah, they knew what kind of essence Umar ibn Sa'd had and what Umar ibn Sa'd was all about. And by the way, Umar ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is also one of the notorious figures in early Islam, by the way. We're not going to go there, but let's look at Umar ibn Sa'd, because all of these people had a pass. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, for example, or Khalid ibn al-Walid. All these people, you know, they had that kind of very dark history in early Islam. They were either excommunicated by the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or they were either involved with a lot of corruption, or they were either involved with massacres and things like that. And imagine those kind of people, and then when you see someone like Taliban, and everyone's really, really devastated about what's happening now in Afghanistan, and we all need to somehow be involved in that, somehow try to educate those who are around us about that. Yeah, people are saying, well, the Taliban of today is different than the Taliban 20 years ago, whatever the case may be, but these people, they have that within themselves. You know, the leader of the Taliban faction now, he refers to himself as Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? So they really genuinely believe that they represent God on earth. If they represent the Prophet, then they represent God. And so when they were doing these things, they wanted to get closer to the Khalifa, because they assumed that getting closer to the Khalifa, they're going to get close to God. Umar ibn Sa'd, because of how greedy he was, the one and only thing that got him to do what he wanted was the promise of him becoming the governor, the ruler of Ray. Ray is, of course, nowadays one of the adjoining areas of Tehran. Ray is also where many of our ulama, like As-Saduq and that, were and are buried, of course. And also Shah Abdul Azim Al-Hassani alayhi salam, one of the great ulama from the immediate offspring of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, is also buried in Madinatu Ray. So Ray, of course, at that time was a flourishing city, and very, very kind of prestigious place. And so Yazid and Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad knew that, well, if we wanted to get this person to become one on our side and the commander, let's promise him Ray. Did he get Ray? All those people who participated, they died with misery. They died with regret. They died under the sword of either the Tawabin or the movement of Al-Mukhtar. They didn't get what they wanted in the dunya, they didn't get what they want to in the akhirah. Many of the people who participated against Imam Hussein, their own family, their own wives disowned them. And we know with Yazid and his own family were not in any way pleased with what Yazid did. And therefore, all of these things, when we put all of them together, we understand how that kind of atmosphere and environment was. People sometimes might find it difficult to acknowledge or accept the fact that many people really participated, up to between 20 to 30,000 people really participated in that atrocious act and killing Imam Hussein and his family members and companions. Really, such a small group have to face such a large number of people? Again, all of this because there was work, there was field work being done, strategic work being done to brainwash and mass control, what they call mass control, by different means. But as I said, the most effective was this assumption that people had that the Khalifa was the representative of God. Of course, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, gradually, one of the effective outcomes that Imam Hussein's revolution produced was he gradually broke that mentality where people no longer made that connection. There was still the same thing, but it became weaker and weaker and weaker throughout time. And this is exactly why with Yazid, when he became the Khalifa in the year 60 after Hijrah, then Imam Hussein, in the first year of his Khilafah, Imam Hussein was killed. The grandson of the Prophet was killed. Second year of Khilafah, massacre in Medina al-Munawwara, the istibaha of al-Medina al-Munawwara, and the third year was the attacking of the Holy Haram in Mecca al-Mukarramah and hitting the Kaaba al-Musharrafa itself with the manjaniq, with the catapult. And then with this happening, just imagine right now, today, someone was going to announce, whoever it may be, we are going to attack the Kaaba. What would Muslims say? Even the most Salafi of Muslims, even the most wicked of Muslims, the most radical, the most extreme of Muslims would object to it. But you say Yazid did that. Well, that was a part of what happened in the past, and let's forget that. Why is that? Why does that happen? It's because if you criticize Yazid, then that's going to open a little door to criticize Muawiyah. And when you criticize Muawiyah, that's going to open another door to criticize Uthman. And when you criticize Uthman, that's going to open another door to criticize Umar, then to criticize Abu Bakr. Then the whole Sunni faith is demolished and destroyed. And that's why there's that protective side of don't criticize the Sahaba, don't criticize the Tabi'een, don't criticize the Tabi'een or Tabi'een. And then they define what is a Sahabi. A Sahabi is someone who was a Muslim who saw the Prophet. Saw the Prophet, or was a close, elite friend of the Prophet. That's what Sahaba, that's what Suhba means. Suhba means that you have some kind of accompanying of a person. No, Suhba means if you see the Prophet, then you're a Sahabi. What's a Tabi'i? A tabi'i is also out of bounds as well. You can't criticize a tabi'i, whatever that tabi'i might have done. A tabi'i is someone who saw the Prophet. Then you have the tabi'i, which is the third generation, and that is someone who saw someone who saw the Prophet. They're also out of bound as well. That's all for the sake of creating this kind of protective zone that if you criticize one, it's going to a ripple effect is going to happen. It's going to be like a snowball getting larger and larger and larger and larger while it's going down the cliff. So let's stop it from there. Don't even allow the snowball to move from its place. This is, of course, very important for us because in our case, it doesn't matter who that person may have been, how close they may have been, even if it was the immediate family member of a ma'soom, if they deviated away from the path, we curse them, we condemn them, we reject them. Like who? Talha and Zubayr, companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Then later on they went away. Like who? Abdullah al-Aftah, the second son of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, who claimed imamah. When it comes to affairs like this, there's no compromising. We don't compromise with matters of religion. And so when we ask this question, did Yazid win the fight? Well, first of all, if you want to look at it in that particular way, as far as who won and who lost physically, materially, of course, Imam Hussein's army was outnumbered. Imam Hussein lost the battle, the war. But is that how we look at it? Absolutely not. Why? Because the Quran directs us in a different path, a different way. وَلَا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاء. Don't assume, don't think that those who have been slain in the path of God are dead. Rather, they are alive. عند ربهم يرزقون. They gain their sustenance from their Lord. عند ربهم يرزقون. So yes, physically, Imam Hussein died on the day of Ashura. So did some of his family members. So did his companions. But his legacy is more than alive. The spirit of Imam Hussein is more than alive. So yes, on an equation that would be on surface value, Yazid won, Imam Hussein lost. But as far as legacy is concerned, as far as the mission, the objective that Imam Hussein alayhi salam wanted, Imam Hussein won. As we said yesterday, just one way of proving the victory of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein is, we all know where he's buried. We all know when he was martyred. How about Yazid? How about Yazid? Where is he buried? Who knows where he is? Who mentions him other than La'n? Who mentions him? Who commemorates him or Muawiyah or any of these other people in this clan? Anyone from Bani Umayyah? Anyone from Bani Abbas? Why? Because, as the saying goes, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ يَنْمُو. Whatever is from God will grow. Whatever is for God will grow, will expand. You do something, a small act, quality-wise, purely for the sake of God, you'll see its effects happening again after again after again, generation after generation after generation, and expanding and expanding. Rahmatullahi alayh, Sheikh Abbas Al-Qummi. Sheikh Abbas Al-Qummi, he's not the first person who compiled a dua book. There are many of our great ulama, maybe as far as ilm is concerned, another 2 or 3 or 4 years, but ultimately he's going to die, like the other A'imma alayhim as-salam. Why would you allow yourself to live with humiliation? No one's going to accept that. Imam Hussein said that himself, didn't he? When he said that God won't allow it, the Messenger of Allah won't allow it, and the mu'minun won't allow humiliation. That's why hayhat minna adhillah. So Imam Hussein had that option of, for example, pledging allegiance, not sacrificing the life of his family members and the companions. Story will be over. He would live a few more years, but how could he or any true mu'min live under the torment of this immoral, corrupt, hedonistic Khalifa, outwardly doing the worst of sins? No one would accept it. How could they accept it? That's not the religious person. That's not the true Muslim. Of course, compare that to, what's happening nowadays with the cover-ups of these umara and khulafa of many of our so-called Islamic countries. There's one of their muftis says that if you see Waliul Amr, the ruler of our country, committing the act of na'udhu billah, zina, openly, and you see it with your own eyes, you still have no right to object to what it is that he's doing. One of them even said, on top of the Kaaba, you still have no right to object or question what it is that he's doing. You can't say, oh, look at that. No right whatsoever. That's what's happening now, isn't it? They're closing down, they closed down Hajj, right? But there was the largest star party of a famous singer. Large concert. This is where we need to evaluate our lives. This is where we implement the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in our lives. Because we want to be graduates of the madrasa of Imam Hussein. We want to make sure that whatever we do, wherever we go, we see Imam Hussein in front of us. And that's the kind of approach that we take. That's the kind of mentality that we hold. So, of course, Imam Hussein is not going to accept for him to just live a few more years. Supposedly, he's not going to be comfortable. No mu'min would be comfortable. But that was option number 1. Option number 2 is go ahead with this path, which is death is going to be certain in that path. Inshallah, we will continue on with our talk on this to speak about the results that Imam Hussein's sacrifice brought to the Muslim Ummah and to the rest of the world. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.